A few weeks ago, I reviewed this, the PlayGO. This is a PocketGO V2 clone, which is able to play retro games from the NES, SNES, PS1, Game Boy, Genesis, and the list goes on. Back in that video, I mentioned that there was an alternative firmware for this device, which gives better performance, at least in terms of user experience, the Rogue Firmware. In today's video, I'm going to give you an overview of the improved Rogue Firmware and show you how you can set it up on your console. Now you should note that these instructions work for the PlayGO and the PlayGO V2, I'll tell you how to tell the difference, as well as the PocketGO V2 and the PocketGO 2.1 console, as it were. So, let's get started. The PlayGO console, as well as many others like it, run the OpenDingux project. This is a combination of a Linux operating system, system utilities, and several emulators, which provide an environment for your console, allowing you to play games, of course, but also manage the device, connect via USB, manage the SD card, change settings, and so on. Now, there's nothing wrong with the OpenDingux firmware. However, it only gets updates sporadically. Also, the user experience leaves a little bit to be desired, which is where the Rogue firmware comes in. Rogue is a fork of the OpenDingux software, which is open source. The goals for the project are to improve the user experience. Now remember that user experience doesn't just refer to the look of the software. It also refers to how pleasant and useful something is, and this is where the focus of Rogue comes in. The Rogue firmware extends OpenDingux by adding exFAT file system support, allowing the SD card to be automatically resized, providing a more consistent folder structure, updating the system menu to be better looking and more functional, fixing volume control, adding an app store for ported games, adding additional game launchers, and much more. Many features are in the pipeline too, such as updating the system kernel and suspend capability, modernizing APIs, and for consoles with an HDMI port, HDMI output support. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is go to the GitHub page, which is hosting the Rogue firmware. Now, all the links that I'm using in this video are down in the description. Now you'll need to make sure that you're on this page that I'm linking you to here, because this is the one for the actual PocketGO V2 and also the PlayGO V2. Now once you're here, you'll need to click on Releases. You can see down here that there is this latest release here. Now from here we need to download two things. One is an SD card image, which is a .bin file, and another is an update file, which is a .opk file. So we'll start with the SD image first. So first, you'll need to determine which device you have. Obviously, you probably already know whether you have a PlayGO or a PocketGO. You may not know whether it's the normal one or the V2. Basically, as you can see in this image here, if you have a V2 device, the menu button tends to be unlabeled. And that identifies both on PlayGO and on PocketGO whether you have the V2. In my case, mine is unlabeled, so I'm going to go for PlayGO V2. But obviously you'll need to download the one which is relevant for your device. Okay, so now that that's downloading, we'll also need to download the OPK file. Again, decide whether you have a PlayGO or a PocketGO, and then decide whether you need the normal one or version 2. In my case, I'm going to download PlayGO version 2, which matches the bin file which I downloaded. So this guy gets downloaded too. Now we're going to need something to flash this bin file to the SD card. And for this, I recommend using the Balena Etcher. Again, there's a link down in the video description, but basically it's this software here, which is super easy to use. And the nice thing about this is that it's available for Windows, Linux, and macOS. So just go ahead and get that installed. Now in my case, I've already installed it, and so I'll find it here on my system. So now what you'll need to do is you'll need to connect the primary SD card, meaning the one on the left of your device, to your computer. So I'm gonna do so with an adapter here. Okay, so now we'll choose Flash from File, and from my Downloads folder, I'm selecting the SD image which I downloaded. Now I'll click Select Target, and I'll need to choose my SD card, which in my case is this one here. As you can see, it's detected as mass storage device, 15.7 gigabytes. Okay, so now we'll just click Flash, and in my case I need to enter my password, and now we'll just let this do its thing. Okay, now that's complete. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to eject the SD card now, and I'm going to plug in the second SD card, meaning the one on the right. Okay, so I've inserted my second SD card here, and as you can see, I already have some ROMs on this SD card. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy these, and I'm gonna just temporarily put them in my Downloads folder just as a quick backup. I will have a few ROMs here, but obviously guys, this could take a while. Now once that's done, technically we can move on to just putting stuff on this SD card, but it might be a good idea to format the SD card for a fresh start. Now you can do this with disks on Linux, with the disk utility on macOS, or with computer management on Windows. The important thing is that you select the card, you format it, and then you make sure that when you create your partition, you choose a FAT partition. As you can see here, now on Windows and macOS, this will say FAT32, which is basically the same thing. So I'm just creating that here. So now, as you can see, my volume is empty. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to my Downloads folder and copy the ROMs folder to this now freshly formatted SD card. Another thing we'll want to do in the new SD card is create a new folder and call it Apps. Now it's important that it's called Apps all in lowercase, as I'm showing you here. Next, we'll need to go to our Downloads folder, and as you can see, there's the OPK update file that we downloaded earlier. So you'll want to copy this, and you'll want to paste it inside the Apps folder. Now the combination of the SD card that we flashed earlier, as well as this OPK file, will get the firmware installed, but what we won't have is emulators, ported games, and all of that. Luckily, you can install the RG350 local pack from this website here. Again, the link is down in the video description. So you'll want to download this file here, the .7zip file. It's a 912 megabyte file. Okay, so depending on your internet, it could take a while to download. So we'll just wait for this guy to download. Okay, so the file has downloaded. So what you want to do is go again to your Downloads folder, and as you can see, it's here. So I'm going to right click it and say Extract here. And as you can see, this folder gets created, and inside it is a bunch of stuff. So what I would recommend is to open a new window. Okay, so we have my SD card here with the Apps folder we created, which just contains that PlayGO update so far. And then we have what we downloaded from the local pack here. Now what you want to do is you want to go in each of these folders and copy or move everything to this Apps folder on the SD card. Okay, so I've copied Apps. Now I'll do the same with emulators, games, and ports. Okay, so now that everything has been copied over, we can go ahead and eject the SD card, and we're done with our computer, and we can move on to the PlayGO itself. Okay, so here I am with my PlayGO, and I have the left SD card here with the bin file that we flashed, and the right SDK file with the update, as well as all the ROMs and emulators that we downloaded or backed up. So I'm just gonna go ahead and insert the SD cards here. There we go. And now I'll power it on. As you can see, we get a Rogue boot screen. Now what's going to happen here is that we are going to install this to the device. Now this could take a while depending on the speed of your SD card, so we'll let this guy do its thing. Okay, so that swap file seems to have been created. As you can see now, it says the system will reboot in 10 seconds. And we get back to the Rogue splash screen. And it's finishing the installation and it's going to reboot again. And here we are inside the Rogue firmware now. As you can see, there's all the stuff you would expect. And a lot of the stuff that I've already installed on my SD card on the second one has been detected here. Okay, now the first thing we'll want to do before doing anything else is we'll want to update the firmware on this guy. So to do that, we'll go to the Applications tab, which is here, and then we'll want to find the update file, which in my case, as you can see, is here, OS Update 1.4.2. So I'm going to select that guy and press A to start the update. And as you can see, we get a message and we'll say this update is only for the PlayGO V2. It will not work on the PlayGO model, which, yeah, that makes sense. So are you sure your console is a PlayGO V2? Well, I don't have a menu button, so it should be. So I'm going to choose yes, and then press start. The system seems to be already up to date. Do you really want to continue? Well, why not? Yes, we'll try it anyway. And we'll say update. And as you can see, the update is now installing, proceeding at a pretty good pace here. Now, one thing you should note is that if for the release you've downloaded there was the bin file, as was the case for us, then you don't necessarily need to install this update, since the bin file should already contain the update within it. However, sometimes a release of Rogue will contain only the OPK update file. In that case, you'd need to download the bin file of a previous release, flash that onto the SD card, and then update to the latest version using the OPK file. Okay, so this is technically redundant in my case, but I'm doing it anyway just in case there's no bin file for your version. So it says the update is now complete. The system will now restart. And we'll say OK. And here we are back in the Rogue firmware. Now, strictly speaking, we're done. You can go ahead and enjoy the Rogue firmware. But one thing I'd like to do is to copy all of the applications from that local pack onto the primary SD card. So to do that, you'll need to go to Application and then go here to the DingUX commander. Now, as you can see, this application displays two columns, and we're on the column on the left right now. Okay, so what you will want to do is we're going to go to the two dots icon, which basically means up a directory, until we get here and we see these bunch of folders: bin, boot, dev, etc, blah 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 blah. So now we'll need to find the media folder, which is here, and then from there we'll go to data, and from there we'll go to apps. And as you can see, there's some stuff in there which was included with the PlayGO firmware, with the Rogue custom firmware. Now we're going to press the right button to go to the second column, and from here we'll need to go to, again, the root folder. Then we'll go to media, SD card, and as you can see, there are those two folders which we have on the second SD card, which is apps and ROMs. So we'll want to go to the apps folder and then press Y and choose select all. So this selects all of the files we copied into that apps folder. Then we'll press X and choose the move command to move all of those OPKs that we downloaded onto the primary SD card. Now this can take a while, so we'll just let the software do its thing. Okay, so as you can see, the copy operation has completed. This took a while, guys, so if it takes a while for you, don't worry, it does eventually actually work. Now to get out of the DingUX commander, I'll press power and select at the same time. So let's take a little bit of a look at what we have here. So we have a bunch of applications. We have an explorer, some sort of pixel fixer, an archiver, and all of the utilities that you would expect on the native install, including the media players if you use that kind of stuff. Now if we move on to the emulators, you'll see we have DOSBox, the Famicom emulator, Super Nintendo, Genesis, Game Boy, FCUX, the Handy, NES, some other Game Boy emulators, the PlayStation 1 emulator, PC Engine, etc, etc. So all of these emulators which were in that local pack that we downloaded earlier. Moving on to games, here we have the game ports for the device itself, BZ flag, some sort of custom WAD for Doom. We have Chocolate Doom here, Fruity, quite a bit of games. Now these are native to the device, including of course Quake, as you see here, and even Quake 2. So this was actually not on my original firmware, so it's nice to have both of them here. And then in the settings tab, you have all the settings that you would expect as usual. So let's try Doom. Okay, so that seems to be working. Now again, this is now of course this is not meant to be a game review. I've already done that in my previous video, and simply by installing the Rogue Firmware you shouldn't really expect any performance improvement in games. This is mostly for user updates and a better user experience. So let's actually try some emulated games here. So I should have an SNES emulator here, and I should have my Super Mario World ROM. Yep, that seems to be working. Yep. Seems to be working fine. Yep. Now I mostly play Super Nintendo and PS1 games on my PlayGO, so I just want to make sure that my PlayStation games are still working fine. So I'm gonna go to the PlayStation emulator, which is this guy here, and try Crash Bandicoot, one of my favorites. Yep. This seems fine to me. Okay, so yeah, everything seems to be working fine with the new Rogue firmware. So, that's an overview of the Rogue firmware and how to get it installed on your console. Now, as I mentioned, the purpose of the Rogue firmware is to improve the user experience, to make your console easier and more pleasant to use. This means that it won't really have that much of a big impact on the performance of your emulated games. Now, that being said, with the upgrades being made to the core system, as well as other quality of life improvements, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the games you run do end up working better thanks to Rogue. Have you tried the Rogue firmware? If so, what's the best thing about it in your opinion? Let me know down in the comments below. Oh, and whilst you're there, why not give this video a like and Tech Guru a subscribe? Your likes, and especially subscribes, really help this channel to grow and motivate me to keep going. Also, if you want to support me financially, like these awesome people on screen now, please consider subscribing to me on Patreon. Your financial support helps me to buy the products and services I cover in my videos, and also the equipment I use to make the videos. In return, you'll get early access to videos, an exclusive chat room for patrons, the ability to suggest videos, and even technical support. Finally, remember you can also watch these videos on Odyssey if YouTube is not your thing. Thanks for making it to the end, and as always, thanks for watching.